Hi, welcome to the first review of 2025 as the Blues go down to Richmond. 9 goals, 15-69 to 13 goals, 482 in front of 80 odd thousand people at the MCG in the traditional Thursday night season opener time slot. Usually when there's a bad loss, I find it easier to reconcile after a sleep. That did not happen today because I woke up and I felt worse about the game than what I did last night. If I'm honest, there was maybe the shock factor of it all. But man, that was dreadful. that was a dreadful performance by the Carlton Football Club. And there's so many familiar storylines and layers to it from the dark days that this generation live through and have lived through. And you're just left wondering what's real, what's not real, what's going on? Like, what is happening? What is still happening? I caught the bug the night before the game. I was really excited, obviously. I mean, a lot of us were. There's been a tension in the preseason that I have felt throughout the whole time, starting with Dick Pick and pretty much from there. Oh, no, sorry. Starting from the way it ended in 2024, and then guard goes up pretty early, sad injuries, and then this week we were told that Elijah Hollins would be taking personal leave indefinitely. And I didn't think much of if that would, in isolation, disrupt the team harmony, or if the whole thing from the off-season would disrupt the team harmony, if there was a lingering effect from whatever happened last year. I don't know. But nonetheless, I was super excited, ready to move on. The thing is, there was so much talk and speculation in the off-season, and generally just talk, because that's all we have. There's no real footy to analyse, and there's no performances to really look at. And I was just so excited for the ball to bounce, because ultimately, there was the opportunity for the players and for the club to let this season play out and write the story that is the truth. And maybe they did. Maybe that is the truth. But yeah, best part about the footy for me is that family aspect, going with my siblings, just talking to random people about the Blues. It's just the whole thing. I've spoken about this for many years now. It's just the magical element of the MCG and going there and just all of it. It brings a lot of joy to me, and there's nothing like it. It's my happy place. Ball bounces, and obviously this is going to be a pretty critical review, but I can't really critique too much in the first quarter, because I guess any fears that I had about if something was wrong, they were pretty alleviated. I mean, team looked sharp, organised, disciplined. I thought certain individuals were moving in a really confident way. I loved the way Zach Williams was moving and presenting to the ball carrier. I loved what I saw from Chera early in the game. I just thought it was sensational. And if you want to look at something to clap him for, I think the first quarter exemplifies exactly what I was hoping that we would do for 4 quarters, but it was brilliant. And then the second quarter comes along. The margin got out to 41 points, I think, at its peak. The Tigers came back at it, to their credit. And it was disappointing from a performance standpoint, but at the end of the day, we're still up 4 goals or so at halftime, and I was just thinking of course, there's going to be some sort of pushback. I had no stress. I was in full belief of what was about to happen in the second half. And at the end of the day, it can be hard to play against a team that you're expected to beat, because the way in which the build-up happened, I spoke to Richmond supporters who didn't even let me entertain the thought that Carlton might lose. There was, it was beyond, I guess it was arrogant and I guess it was cocky, but even from the Richmond supporters who I spoke to, not even allowed to tell them, oh, what if, you never know. You're like, nah. I know, it's like, I know my club, I know Richmond, I know it. It was bizarre. And I spoke about it in the preview. The greater the margin was going to be for Carlton if we won the game, it would have been discredited because it would have been, oh, it's only Richmond. The lesser the margin, the more scrutiny. But then there was this other scenario, kind of like over there, that if you brought it up, you're like, no, don't be ridiculous. And that was the scenario of exactly what happened last night if Carlton lost. So anyway, we get the third quarter got even worse. And then you started seeing what that confidence and discipline looked like in the first quarter and a bit. Then you started to see a series of events which just reminded me of classic Carlton. Inability to handle pressure, taking the easy option out, just getting the ball out of my area as a player, kicking the ball off the ground. And the mistakes made by senior players, a real dip in the will to compete. That was the phrase that came up last night. The will, like the real want and willingness to play that life or death style football. And it was there in moments from individuals. Shout out to Ollie Hollins. Man was, I think, millimeters away from being knocked out cold, put his body on the line. And so I saw little moments like that thinking, no, we're okay. They're really locked in. Ollie, full kudos to him. I think the way Jack Silvani competed last night just reminded you that there are players out there that play with a purpose, and they play with like they are a part of something meaningful. But then our leaders were just unable to wrestle the momentum back. The contest and pressure side of the game, which is what the team prides itself on, you just saw it falling apart. You'd have 2 to 3 Carlton players rushing at the ball carrier to apply the pressure and maybe get a stoppage or force a turnover. But when you don't impact that contest, the next one comes, the handball goes over, then 2 more or maybe 3 more Carlton players get to that next player, and then they didn't impact. And once that happens, you're talking about 6 on 2. The math ain't mathing. It's not an even battle anymore. So those breakdowns were happening. And then, a guy like Harry Mackay, who's a leader of the group now, I saw a guy who he just had this inability to compete, the will to compete. And was he hurt, injured, banged up, something? He just didn't have a force about him. So that affected the presence in the forward line. I thought the back line stood up relatively well until the plague started getting to them, and that's kind of what it looked like. It looked like little spots of a disease, and then before you know it, Carlton had lost confidence completely. And so you credit the Tigers. If you're a Richmond supporter, you must be so proud. Like, what a performance! Young kids, all of that, the exuberance, even going down by 41 and, having that, maybe if you're a supporter of Richmond, you're having that, okay, well, we expected this type thought, but then to dig themselves out of that. And then eventually you watch them get the confidence that, oh, wow, like, we can beat Carlton. So they were brilliant, the Tigers. They were brilliant, and they made the atmosphere of the game so good. And I guess if you're a neutral, that was fantastic. And then there's Carlton, man. Like, what are you all doing? Not just the play. Like, it's the same proposition. Awful, dreadful performance. And you're left questioning, is it the players? Are they affected by the club? Like, what was that? What was that? The most confusing part for me when I watch the team, I'm looking around for like, do they look like that? Because we saw what it looks like when they are on the same page, focused and as a cohesive unit playing for each other. We've seen it. We've seen them do it. That second half of 23, we all saw, and now we know what it looks like when they're locked in for each other, for one another. And so that was clearly not there. I watched that game last night, and I left that stadium last night saying, like, something's up in that playing group. That is not a connected playing group. That is absolutely not it. Competing interests, are they coming to the surface? It got so bad that I said this on the fan cams last night, about 5 minutes to go, I think we started lifting, and one of the, like, a toxic thought and a toxic feeling came over me. I'm like, I don't want to win. I do not want to win. I'm obviously not happy with what's happened, but I understand that I think it was necessary. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? Because that is awful. That is not good. That's not good. To think that as someone who supports the club. I didn't want them to get away with it. I wanted the truth to come out. I didn't want there to be a false dawn about, we scraped away and we showed some resilience and, we found a way and it wasn't our night. But, there's something about this group. There is something about this group. There's something about this club, and it stinks. It's rotten. And now my concerns are that what we saw in the preseason are just a precursor to what's about to come. Like, is this just one of those really bad losses at the start of a season that clicks you into gear and smacks you in the face, and then you're good from now on? Or the first few weeks are a bit tough and then you figure it out and then you're good? Or is this just a sign of things to come, and it's one of those, all right, strap in, it's not going to get good. It's going to be that volatile perform when everyone is lashing out at you, and then as soon as you get a nice win, you feel good, and as soon as you feel good, the bad loss happens. The external review will come, and change will be made, and Vossi will be the scapegoat, and the guys upstairs in their shirts and ties, like they'll all stay, they'll keep getting paid, and the cycle will go, and then the medical imaging center will be splattered out into the media, and club will demonize the fans, and it's the fans' fault, they're toxic. So what is it going to be? We'll see. Yeah. This is a feeling that usually happens later in the season. Like when the scar tissue just rips. This is not something I really thought would happen round one. And in that is also the story of Carlton to be a supporter, because it's like they just find a way to surprise you in a different way and disappoint you in a different way. It's a new low. Leaving that ground last night, it had the same eerie feeling for me as the Collingwood loss at the end of 2022. Just that eeriness. I don't think there was much hype about Carlton going into it. And I can totally understand the banter and how insufferable Carlton fans can be, and I understand it. And so I felt those walls caving in, so to speak, after that siren. And and to be honest, I thought coming onto the fan cams, I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be a really It's going to give the club a reason and the external a reason to point the finger at how toxic the fans are. And then something fucking beautiful happened on the fan cams last night. Rather than turning on each other, we turned to each other. And it was fucking beautiful to watch. It was beautiful. Oh man, I was like proud. And then I watch a fan base who just care about watching and supporting a successful football team, contrasted with a club that does so much more than just focusing on winning games of football, because it is an entity with other interests, and there is a commercial aspect to this game, and there's so many aspects to this game. And those thoughts now come up about that disconnect. Like, good luck getting the fans on side again. Well, you get the fans on side if you beat Hawthorn next week, but I'm not even going to entertain that right now. Even though it would make perfect sense in my warped, twisted, dark reality. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what to think now. I don't know how to be. The only thing I know for sure is that there is a commitment. I want to get to the bottom of it. Yeah. They won't dictate the narrative. They won't be disingenuous as long as we're around. It's not going to happen. It is just bizarre. These are professionals on the field, off the field. It's the whole club. And that's the thing. I mean, I have space for feeling for the players too, because what are they a part of? And then I also have space for, well, you're professionals, you're grown men, you're accountable, you're in a privileged position, and real pressure is what's happening outside this country, and people are dying. Like, that's real pressure. That's not to say that last night and playing in the league isn't full of pressure, but we're talking about real pressure and perspective. And I don't know if the issue is the players or if it's the football club, which whatever happens day to day, week to week at the football club, my guess is that we get a window into the football club based on what happens on the field. Because in my mind, everything's about what happens on the field. That's the most important part about the football club. The football club. Football first. So that could be wrong, because there's more to it when it comes to this club and what's important. Winning's not the only thing that's important, but it's the most important thing. So let's see what happens. Oh, wow, they fucked around and found out. That's what happened. They flirted with danger after being up in a strong position, and they found out, and they deserved it. So, see what happens. I'd like to ask you your thoughts about that. Do you feel worse after a sleep or better? How do you make sense of whatever that was? Like, what's in your mind? Share with us in the comments below, and I hope as many of you do, because it's the fan sentiment. I mean, the sentiment has to come out. Like, there's so many people that invest so much time and effort and energy and families and finances that they can't keep doing that. That can't be it. That's just so far off the level. And given the experience that I've had as a supporter, I mean, you keep playing like that and you keep seeing results like that, old Carlton will rear its head again. Can you escape it? Is there an escape? Is it all happening for a purpose, and then it'll all make sense when it all gets fixed? That's where I'm hopeful. The truth's got to come out. So can they be really honest, or will they go into self-preservation mode on all levels, everyone involved? Let's find out. Chat to you in the comments. Share with us what you think. We'll go from there. Go Blues.